We are the city that's beating. But when we're lost in you, we find everything we need. So let our love be a portrait of your love. And just like the rising sun, break out and shine through us. We've got fire blazing in our hearts. No, we're never gonna stop until the whole world knows who you are.
Back to her, be her leader, whether better or for worse. Why needs my grace? Her husband teaching the face. She wants me leading the way. Cause I'm the head of my home, don't wanna be alone, so don't leave me alone. If I don't understand my own condition, then I'm a simple man, can't bring about his own redemption. Can I sympathize my wife in her position? Why not? How can I play the role I made for without this recognition? See, to love the Lord, you got it first. I gotta know this kind of love if I'm gonna give it back to her. Be her leader, whether better or for worse. Intimacy ultimately ought to be what she prefers. Am I humble when I'm wrong? Do I confess? Do I have a servant's heart that's sensitive to moments when she's stressed? In correction, do I have her best interest? Do I communicate in conflicts of this love when we're finished? In conclusion, what's my goal in this? To watch her in the word and learn how to lead her into holiness. I'm putting all my heart and soul in this. But without his grace, I'll never treat her in a way that is appropriate. The sun is looking to me, the kind of man that I'll be, depends on how I lead. The Lord looks at my life, the way I'm treating my wife, determined to survive. My wife needs my grace, her husband teaching her face, she wants me leading the way. Cause I'm the head of my home, don't wanna be alone, so don't leave me alone.
Coming to you live from the Christ the Healer TV studios at the beautiful Lake of the Ozarks. This is the 1412 Live, helping you to do the works and the greater works. Here's your host, Don Allen.
2016, and we are in September, and we have a heat advisory today. I cannot believe that. I'm not okay with it, but it is what it is. We are right here in the middle of the bustling metropolis of Versailles, Missouri. This is the 1412 Live. I'm your host, Cheyenne, the myth, the hair, the legend, filling in here today for the Rev. He's out of town in Collins, Missouri for the next few days for a revival they've got going on with a few other ministers that you can listen to right here on the 1412 radio network. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning. And as Don would say, I'm a loner but never alone. Joining us this morning via Skype, we've got Matt with us, and I'm so excited about that. I've also got some guests with me this morning, and these guys aren't just any guests. These are two of the greatest people I know, and I'm so excited to see you here at the table. We have Kelby this morning, and Hannah's going to be joining us later. And all I can say is that you won't want to miss what we've got in store for you guys today. In this morning, or if you've tuned in the last few weeks, we are still in our series of The Vote. And last week, we kind of opened up a new chapter here, wondering what the position that young people are taking in this election. What is our perspective? What do we think of the two candidates? Who is best fit to lead us into the future? How are we to react to all of the madness on the news and on social media? And how are we to vote? Does our vote even count, or do we even care? Today, so contact us. Email at don@TwoGuysAndABible.com or get in the chat room today. And as always, we do want to hear from you. If you're a millennial listening here today, what are your concerns? Where do you stand in the middle of this mess? Or if you've got children or grandchildren, where do they stand with this? Well, folks, you're in for a real treat today. I've got a couple well-respected millennials here in the hot box with me, and we're going to get right down to business and get those things answered. I know we've got so much material to cover, so Matt, let's get this thing started.
I love it, Scott. This is awesome. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How you doing this morning, Kelly?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I think I lost you, Matt.
Why is this election? I'm going to let both of you say this first from your perspective. Why is this election important to you guys? At
Uh,
your age and what you're doing in life.
yeah, definitely. Election is extremely important for multiple reasons. This is a critical time in our age, in this time frame that we're dealing with. That I feel like the choice between the two legitimate options that we have is going to set the path for what our future holds more dramatically than what it has in the past. Before, liberals and conservatives have been able to kind of have some similarities in them and be able to agree on certain things, but they're almost so far left and so far right now that they can't come to terms on the simplest of things on whether the sky's blue or not. And so I think this is extremely critical that we choose somebody who's going to do what we as Christians feel is going to be the best for our nation.
That's right.
Well, and we've been talking for weeks, guys, how important it is to look at this from perspective, moving the gospel across the world. What is going to enable believers? What policies are going to be put in place over these next 4 years? Which judges are going to be chosen as the president's going to appoint Supreme Court justices? What policies are going to be put in place with life? We talked real extensively last week about the sanctity of life and how critical it was that one party's platform supported life, one party's platform supported a lot. And we just read, just in 14 alone, how many abortions there were and what the background there was of Planned Parenthood and what they did. So critical issues like that, we've been saying, then what is going to cause the church to flourish? What is going to cause believers to go across this, not just the U.S., but what policies in the U.S. alone are going to enable believers to go out into all the world and spread the gospel, and what's going to get that job done?
Right. And that's what I think is alarming to me. Like Kelby said, they're so far opposite that I think it's going to be so scary, if certain things go a certain way. I don't think it'll be easy for the gospel to prosper. I think it'll get more difficult, and more of the Bible is going to be considered hate speech, and it's going to be harder for us to do things publicly. The small rights that we have right now, the freedom that we have to worship publicly and to have freedom of speech and just to do the things that we do on a daily basis, I'm afraid that those things are going to diminish, and so just looking at what the future holds, it's just so important to look at the two candidates and really decide who is going to keep us free, in doing what we do.
And that's exactly what we've been doing, right? Is looking at all the different issues and finding out what does the one candidate support, what does the other one support, what is going to get you further. And if you're a person out there as a believer, and Kelby, I want you to start off with this, and Shai, you give everybody your perspective too. Do we have an option to not vote? We hear that a lot. Well, people, they may have had a different candidate. They wanted Ted Cruz. They wanted one of the other candidates, and their candidate's not in. And so now what would you guys tell them?
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. That's actually something that I listened to last week that Don and Shai was talking about on the voting for the lesser of two evils. Mm-hmm. And the last election, I was one of those millennials. I was one of those kids that chose that I didn't want to vote because the lesser of two evils is still evil, in my opinion. The truth of the matter was,
and you're talking in the last election, presidential election. Yes,
I'm talking in a previous one, not the current one coming up.
And tell everybody how old you are, where you're at in life.
I'm 27 years old, and I live in just about an hour and a half or so away in a small town in Missouri. It's a very rural community, and so I grew up with, for the most part, conservative values, but I've never leaned a conservative. I think most millennials are like I am. They don't want to be labeled as a Republican or a Democrat or anything. They just want to be, they want to be free to choose and not have the freedom from labels.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And same as you, Sean.
Yeah, I grew up just knowing, well, my family's Republican, so that's what I am, that label kind of thing. But it was really alarming to me, kind of just to touch on the last couple of weeks, to find out that 4 million evangelicals did not vote in the last election. And I don't remember if it was you or if it was Donnie that said, even if you're not voting, you're still voting. And so that's just been something that's been in my mind, because honestly, up until we started talking about this on the show for the last few weeks, I was kind of in a weird place of, well, I don't want to support either one necessarily, but I also hadn't done my research. I just kind of was like Kelby, and I didn't want to label myself either way, and I didn't want to have the conversation of, oh, who did you vote for? I just didn't want any part in it. But now that I'm learning more of who these candidates are and what they stand for and what that looks like for my future, and for the future of like Kelby and Hannah, they have a little boy, and by the time, this is over and done with, he's going to be in school, and if this person stays in the office for 8 years, what is that going to look like for Maverick growing up? And so while I can't really apply that to my life because I don't have kids, I have friends who have kids, and I'm like, oh, holy cow, this is, this matters, and my vote does make a difference. So even if you think, well, I don't want to be labeled, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want this or that, it's still, you're still making a difference whether you're doing something or not.
Yeah, and see, that's what's crazy. The truth of the matter is this is the first election that I'm actually going to be voting in. I'm old enough to where I could have voted for both terms that Obama ran. I was eligible to vote and failed to do so. And that's something that, looking back, the excuse was, the truth was, the excuse was I didn't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. The truth was, is I was uninformed and uneducated on what was going on around me and had no interest in learning what was going on. And that's really where I see that the issue is today. I think because of the way that this year's elections have gone, it has gotten more attention of more people to do a little bit more research. But I encourage everybody to get informed and to go out and vote, because that's something that, like you said, if even if you don't vote, you're still voting in a sense.
Right. Well, and
you're still voting.
It's hard too, like a little bit I touched on just media, news outlets and social media, and it's really easy to be lazy about your research, just to collect information from headlines here and there and just different little things that you see. But it really is so important for people to really weigh everything out here. I didn't really have interest in learning about stuff. You hear about crooked Hillary, and then Trump is just spouts off at the mouth all the time, and that's all that I really knew about it. Didn't care to learn more. But as I'm seeing the distortion and everything, and just how deceived a lot of people are, it's alarming to me, and it makes me want to learn more so that I can share that with others, and encourage others to learn about who these people are and where they're going to be leading us into the future.
And that's a great point, Shai. That leads into something that you guys really wanted to discuss and talk about here this morning, was that where do you get your news? As you guys go around and you talk to your peer group, you talk to other millennials, people your age, and you look at the news and you try to do research, is it common that you guys struggle with trusting the news and trusting what's out there in the media? Let's talk about that. What about the mainstream media? Where do you guys get your news? Where do you look at stuff? Where do your friends, the people around you that are concerned and who are going to vote, where do they look?
Yeah, I think it's funny because all the time you hear people saying, well, I seen on Facebook the other day, or I seen on the internet, and everybody's comment about the headlines are, oh, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But really, if you really think about it, we really do believe everything we read on the internet, because everybody just goes along with it. I think we've gotten so used to saying, oh, you can't believe what's on Facebook, but yet people go around sharing and and regurgitating that information that they see on the headlines. And so even though you don't believe it's real, you still accept it as truth. And as far as the media is concerned, you know, I know Don was in the older generation that he said last week that they grew up trusting the news. And unfortunately, the kids our age, I don't see us trusting the news.
Mm-hmm.
I see it being more agenda driven as opposed to being truth driven. And so, yeah, I think there's a big distrust between millennials and more so. I mean, it's growing into more and more Americans, I believe, are distrusting the media because of the different leaks and everything that's come out, and people who start coming out and telling the truth about what's going on. So.
Right. And then we talked about, you know, just how biased the different news stations or channels are. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, how, you know, certain people are related. Everybody's related or married or friends of this person. And so obviously there's going to be a lot of leaning, you know, one way or the other. And it's just really hard to find something, you know, where it's fair. You know, it should be fair and balanced news, right? But it's really, it's not all the time that way. And it's kind of, it's like being on a wild goose chase. You know, you're just searching for some kind of truth to grab onto. And even when you find something that sounds authentic, you still have to question it because there's just so much corruption out there, you know?
Yeah. And
well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's the hard part, because, you know, we try to encourage millennials and younger generations to get out and get educated, but it does actually take some time and effort to do so, because there's multiple different news sources that I rely on. I still watch the mainstream media. The Fox News, the CNNs are the two that I keep tabs on, as well as some independent media. And I just try to keep my mind open on that, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of research. And I don't think a lot of kids and even myself, it's so much of a pull up the phone and click, you know, a button just to get some information real quick and scroll through, that I've lost a lot of my desire to do a lot of research like I used to. So it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So is it safe to say for you guys that most people, and I've heard this from other researchers, that most people in the 18 to 34-year-old camp right now are getting their news from Facebook?
Absolutely.
Or from satirical sources. You've got people that get their news from Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah,
right.
That most definitely. That's something that's the really bad part, because they're on, and in my opinion, they're on the news stations that are, you know, in some way, shape, or form, whether they're controlled or inspired or driven by an agenda. You know, the Jimmy Fallons and that, they're on a network that allows them to do certain things and not to do other things. So that is a lot of, that's why you've seen President Obama in his previous two elections and some of the other presidential candidates go on late night shows, is to try to reach that crowd that's not getting reached throughout the day.
And it is very interesting, guys, and I don't know how many people look at this kind of stuff, but we started to bring up last week how there's a recent article just came out last week when the list of all the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Family Foundation, when the donor list came out, and it includes dozens of media organizations that gave to Clinton: NBC Universal, Fox News Corporation, Turner Broadcast, which is CNN, and Thomson Reuters are a couple of the biggies that you know and recognize. Huffington Post, if anybody looks at that.
Right.
I could just go on and on. All these huge media organizations have given big bucks to the Clinton Foundation. When I say big bucks, I'm talking $1 million to $5 million, $500,000 to $250,000,
right. I mean,
100,000 and up.
I'm looking at this one, and in the $500,000 to $1 million, the top one for that is Google. You know, And that's
Google.
our go-to with everything.
I went through just out of curiosity to the Clinton Foundation's website and looked at their donor list, and I chose I chose not to look through all of their list because it was a very substantial list.
It's 6,000.
Yeah, I just so happened to notice that I believe, I mean, I seen a bunch of zeros. I believe it was the $25 million mark, which is the highest one they have there. And Saudi Arabia was involved. And then I happened to notice in the $10 million bracket that another organization from Saudi Arabia was in there. And so it's like, there's a bunch of people, including news media, that are giving to the Clinton Foundation. And you have to ask why. You can't just let that push off. The issue that I'm having now is that Hillary Clinton has had so many issues and so many problems that it's common for people just to shrug it off and say, oh, that's no big deal. You know, that's just another Hillary Clinton scandal. And people's shrugging it off like it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Or a quip on one of the, not just the Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, but all the other comedians, all the nightly stuff, and then those little clips and jokes, the satirical clips get played on Facebook. And it's, well, they're involved in this and they're involved in that. And it's just a big old joke.
Yeah. And yeah, she's made jokes about, next time I'm going to, maybe I need to look into, I'm not familiar with the one app. It's not Cyberdust, but it's one that's similar.
Right.
Or is it? It's the one where you post and then it goes away. Snapchat. I personally, I am, I guess, in the millennials, and I use a lot of technology, but Snapchat's not one of them. But she made a reference to maybe next time I'll use a Snapchat because those delete themselves and joking about it.
Wow.
And it's like whenever you're talking about 50,000+ emails that's in question, and over half of those are wiped, you've got to wonder why. And there's something more to that.
Right.
Now, as part of that, Shai, what do you think of that? Is everybody okay with the fact that that's all a big joke? Is it nobody wants to dive into it further? People you talk to in your circles, people you talk to in the restaurant.
I mean, it's just a normal thing. It's just like, this is off topic, but so many things are becoming normalized, like the homosexuality and just this whole gender identity thing and just super off the wall stuff is so normal now. So if you combat those things, then you're the one who's, over here in left field. And so I think that's kind of what's going on with this Clinton thing is that, we heard about Bill Clinton, and I know that I was young when it happened, but I've learned about it now that I'm older. That scandal is a big joke now too, And so I think it's just the same with her scandals. It's just turned into these funny pictures and posts on Facebook and, oh, well, that's just Hillary being Hillary. And it's just so normalized and nobody's doing anything about it.
I mean, Kelby is not talking about a conspiracy theory. He went to the Clinton Foundation website, to the list of donors, which is public information. We're not talking about a big conspiracy thing here.
Right.
Every news outlet now has reported on this.
Right.
The fact that if during her time as Secretary of State, all these donations and all these speaking fees came into the Clintons. And things happened. It's all very public. It's been on CNN. It's been on Fox. It's been on every major news. All the liberal media even is reporting on that now at this point. But a lot of people won't even go to that level of going to the website themselves and looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys find in your circles that people are going and doing even that kind of research, or they're just content with the quick Facebook meme and the flash and.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
it.
That's basically what people that I talk with on a daily basis. It's I'll share an information with them and they're like, oh wow, I didn't know that, and it's because they didn't see it on Facebook. And I will have to say that the last week, the liberal media that typically leans liberal has actually reported on some stuff that surprised me. That I'm like, wow, I'm surprised they're even mentioning that, just because of the precedents they've set in the past to seemingly ignore what's going on. And you're right, it's not a conspiracy theory of what's going on. We're trying to stick to what we can prove and what we can see and touch and know. But at the same time, there are those organizations out there that, for whatever reason, seem to be leaning towards the liberal side and the Democratic side, that all they have to do is say that a Trump statement is a conspiracy theory, or that another leader is a conspiracy theory, and automatically that makes people turn that off and forget about what they're being accused of because of that word, because that's almost like a very bad word that you just don't want to be anywhere near. So
Right.
Now, I'm going to ask you both a big question, and we'll ask Hannah about this too. But I'm hearing from you guys in your generation, you don't like to be told what to think about this stuff. I mean, you said, Kelby, you didn't vote last time because you just didn't want to be told by either side which way to go. It seems like to me, when the media is just pushing this, they're kind of telling you what to do.
And it's distasteful. Whenever I see this, I think it's distasteful and very off-put by the media. And so, it's hard for me to get into this stuff because it is one way or the other. And I don't want to be told what to do, or we don't want to be told how to think, or, who to vote for. We just want the facts and to be able to decide for ourselves. And that's not what's happening, but on the same hand, a lot of us aren't allowing ourselves to do that. We're in this state of rebellion where we're getting all this stuff thrown in our face and we don't want to deal with it, but we're not doing anything about it at the same time. It's just a lose-lose situation for a lot of people, including myself. Up until a certain point, I was just not really digging into either one.
Yeah.
So how about this? How do you guys feel about this story? Go ahead, Kelby.
No, that's fine.
And then I'll bring the story up.
That's fine.
How do you? This one where Trump this past weekend, he's at a black church,
mm-hmm.
and MSNBC and the news corporation, NBC News, parent company of, who does this, we have a clear video of the media cutting out the prayer time. So the pastor is praying over Trump and giving him a thing, and we have a clear example on video of the cameraman saying to cut it, and to black it out and to not show it on TV.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that?
Well,
they won't. Go ahead.
Sorry for cutting in there on you. I was just going to mention that if what I've done research on is true, that issue, I believe it would have been like, say, Rutgers that was streaming that, and they was allowing other news agencies to broadcast that news feed. Is kind of how that works, because not everybody can send their TV cameras down there on a split notice. So they share feeds from other companies, and yeah, you could hear them wanting to cut the feeds, and there was one news agency that was reporting that you could hear the gentleman saying, no, I want to keep running it, or else, I'll take a demotion for this, because we don't need to cut the feed. So
it's just amazing. And I'm gathering from you guys that you just don't like that. You don't want to be, you don't want things to, you want to see it all and then choose from there, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people would just turn a blind eye to that. And it's, I don't know if it's, I don't want to say ignorance, because that's kind of a harsh word, but how many people would watch that video or watch that footage and not even think twice about it? Think twice about, okay, so this pastor just put this prayer shawl that he's prayed for on, a candidate. Oh, and it just blacked out. I guess that's just technology, right? But how many, why, and that might be on the brink of conspiracy. And we talked about, not liking that word, but we want to know why, what is the big deal? I mean, it is a big deal. It's a huge.
Yeah, there's numerous examples where people have been on live video, whether it's CNN or Fox, and they're talking about something and it's starting to get a little bit off script, and all of a sudden the screen goes away, and I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties. And it seems to only happen whenever things start going off script.
Right.
And so,
how about the guy this week? You guys like this? And you probably saw this on CNN, Kelby. The guy who saved the baby. They had him on there. They called him a hero. He got the baby out of the hot car, and they interviewed him on CNN, and he had a Trump shirt on. When they re-aired the interview, they blurred out the Trump shirt.
Yeah, I would believe it. I personally,
did you see that one?
No, I hadn't seen that. I actually this last week and a half have been on vacation from the fire department, so I actually do a lot of my knowledge and stuff, because at the fire station we usually have a news program running. I actually missed that one, so it doesn't surprise me though. I mean, that's been known to happen.
So they're
before.
interviewing him for an entirely different reason, but they blurred out his Trump shirt during the whole interview.
Well, there was a lady that was on another independent radio that I listened to, and she was a caller and called in from California, and she is a Trump supporter, and she was just attesting to the fact that I support Trump, but I cannot put signs out in my yard because my house will be trashed. I will be vandalized for having a Trump sign out in her area in California. And so it makes it really hard for people who want to support him to step out and support him.
Right. But what would a Hillary Clinton sign? Nobody would touch that.
Oh, yeah,
You
no.
don't hear about that.
No, because that would, we would be sexist or.
That would be controversial.
Yeah.
We just don't want to do that.
Exactly. So that's really, and I know that kind of goes off topic of what this show is about, but it does. There's a lot of that going on, and you see that all the way from the Ferguson rallies and whatnot. That and Don mentioned it last week that Christians are having to be told that we have to be tolerant to everybody else, but yet everybody else does not have to be tolerant of a Christian. And that is really, I mean, the tables have turned dramatically on that. And it used to not be that way. You look back at in the older times and the older presidents that would stand up and pray or mention about Jesus or about God bless you. That doesn't happen anymore. In fact, the opposite. It's not just that it doesn't happen. It's that the opposite happens. And that is, like I said, that's kind of off script, but that's kind of what our current administration is doing now, is glorifying other entities as opposed to glorifying Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not really off script at all, right? Because it's a slippery slope. Right. You guys don't want to be told what to do. And in so many ways, either way, if you're told what you can and can't talk about, you're saying that's not cool with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Not cool at all. And so you start shutting down a particular group, any group at all. Start shutting down a particular group. Where does it end? Where do things stop with that?
Yeah.
It's how I grew up hearing about Cold War era and communist Russia, and hearing about how they couldn't do certain things in other countries. And here I was, an American kid. And I thought, well, that's really weird. How come we can't talk about this stuff?
Right. And that's what's happening. I mean, it's crazy to think. I think it was this past January, our pastors went to Canada and they had to be very careful about what they said because they could get in trouble and they could get the pastors of that church in trouble because, certain things in the Bible are considered hate speech by law in Canada. And so how much longer is it until that's what's happening here? And I know in different states, they have different laws for schools about people talking about the Bible in school or even having Bibles at school. And I think it's happening, little by little, but it's happening so fast. It's happening at such an alarming rate. But it's just, being put in there and we're accepting it as normal, but really it's insane.
And that's the problem, is these things are coming in little by little. And Cheyenne said earlier that it's being normalized.
Right.
And over time, we look back and we're like, oh wow, how did we get to where we are? And it's because we allowed those little bitty things that we thought wasn't no big deal,
Right.
to come in and start taking over.
Well, and that's even, you know, in life in general, that's kind of how things happen with us too. That's how you get caught up in different things. And I know this is way off topic, but just thinking about that as a person, that's how things come into your life. You know, little by little, you allow things to happen, and then before you know it, you're in such a mess and you don't know what to do. And I feel like that's totally parallel with what's happened in America, and people just aren't seeing it, you know. And I'm afraid that people aren't going to wake up, you know, and they're just going to let things happen.
Yeah.
It's scary, you know,
And
for the future.
It is scary because it's boiled down to 140 character tweet or a Snapchat. I mean, it's not even really. Do any of your friends that you know do Twitter?
Oh yeah.
You guys?
Yeah.
Okay. But even with the Twitter, at least you get the 140 characters.
Yeah.
Snapchat isn't even that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's come down to just tiny little bit.
Well, and that's
Tiny
even,
little bit.
I can attest to that, because if I'm going to watch a video about something or a suggested video, if I don't see something within 5 to 6 seconds that interests me, I'm on to the next thing.
Right.
And
5 or 6 seconds.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't spend hardly any time if I'm researching on how to build something or how to learn something new on YouTube or even about politics. If it's not something that can catch my interest in a quick amount of time, and sometimes the advertisements will throw me off, you know, and I'll just go on to the next one. So it's pretty sad.
Did you watch any of the debate? I mean, I'm sorry, any of the RNC convention, the DNC convention, or any of the primary debates?
Absolutely. I actually recorded all of them. That way I could go back if
You're
I
an
needed
exception.
to. Yeah.
Yes.
That normally doesn't happen.
I did not. I'm just saying.
Normally I would not have, but I have gotten so inspired to be educated about this, because the truth of the matter is what's happening is, you mentioned it earlier when we started, is one of these presidents is going to be appointing Supreme Court justices, and more than that, they're going to be pushing issues that try to suppress our constitutional rights. And obviously, I mean, I don't know.
Well, what was the trigger event that shook you up? Was it having your daughter, or what made you think about this now compared to 4 years ago? What got you to where you'd record the debate?
Yeah. And actually, my son, he's he just turned a year.
Oh, your son?
Yeah. No, that's fine. But he, I mean, that probably plays part of it subconsciously. I would have to say that, because I started this before, if I remember right. Yeah, he wasn't born yet. Because that was the presidential. Donald Trump announced June 16th of 2015, and he wasn't born until August. So when Donald Trump announced, that automatically caught my attention, because he's an outsider. And here's the deal, and it obviously sounds like I'm going for Donald Trump, and I don't care to hide that. I don't need to hide that, but he doesn't have to do this. I ask people all the time. I know he says things that I don't agree with as far as his mannerisms and how he says things. There's probably policies that he's going to want to push that I don't agree with. But overall, you look at it, why is he doing this? He has made billions of dollars, not millions, but billions of dollars. He's set up for him and his kids and his grandkids' life. He's actually putting himself in harm's way. He was their company is actually pretty much debt free right now and running better than it ever has. All the kids run it. Absolutely. And that's something that, you know, he's put himself in a position where him and his family and his grandkids, I'm sure, receive death threats on a daily basis. And before, he was a TV show, host and very popular. And now he's putting his, he's putting his life on the line. And I believe whenever he says that he's wanting to give back to the country that was so great to him, I believe he's true. I don't see any other reason for him to run for president.
Right.
So this reminds me of the quote I put in there for you guys from Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and conservative and Trump supporter. But Newt said in an interview, last week. I thought this was a very interesting quote. It really relates to what you're talking about, Kelly. He said, "So Trump is stubborn, but he didn't delete 33,000 emails.
Exactly.
He didn't send out secret information. He didn't lie about the FBI. Hillary did." And if you look at Peter Schweizer's piece in the Wall Street Journal, there's evidence the Clintons were dealing with the Russians. There's evidence the Secretary of State that she approved things that helped the Russian military. And it's funny because now even Wall Street Journal, liberal media, Washington Post, all these outlets are reporting stuff like this and saying she did delete those. The FBI, the FBI documents came out on Friday night before a holiday weekend.
Exactly.
Their report came out about Hillary's testimony. And right before the weekend, they just dropped it in there, not on a Monday, where everybody could talk about it.
Listen, we're just going to leave this here for you. Just think on that
Yeah,
for a few days.
We're going to drop this on Friday night. And the best that we have against Trump is, well, he's stubborn and he said some stupid stuff.
Exactly. And even what he's saying is being misconstrued. He says it in a very harsh way, and I feel like he could expound on that to clarify. But to be honest with you, in the beginning, and even still today probably, it's probably been he's probably done it on purpose in a sense to get the media coverage that he's gotten.
Right.
But what he says isn't bad. Whenever he says, I want to get rid of illegal immigrants and build a wall, and people distort that and say, oh, he's racist. That goes back to the mistrust of the media.
They're definitely pulling out. And I see this all the time. I will go on and watch the full speech on YouTube. So when Trump does a speech, I'll go watch the whole thing. And I do this with Hillary too, and listen to the whole thing in context. And it doesn't sound anything like what I'm seeing reported on CNN, Fox, any of the other news outlets. It'll be totally different. I'll think, wow, he didn't say that. He didn't say that at all.
Yeah.
And they just pull out tiny little clips. Now, we all know, we grew up, even myself. Okay, so I'm turning 43 this year. And I grew up in the era of sound bites also. Not quite as bad as you guys, but definitely sound bites. So this is all normal, right? But we have a whole different thing going on right now. We can pull anything up on YouTube and watch the whole thing, pretty much. There's hardly anything that's not accessible to us. We didn't have this 30, 40 years ago. You'd get stuff a week or two late, or you'd actually read a newspaper to learn about these stories. I mean, we do have the ability to go out and look at the Clinton Foundation documents. We have the ability to look at the FBI documents in the hearing, in the testimony, any congressional testimony. We can go watch YouTube videos that have congressional testimony on them. Not that not that we're going to survive past the first 30 seconds, but we can.
And that's something that, if you remember, I believe it was Hillary Clinton's first release, or the hearing. It was the 4th of July weekend. They done it again on a Friday afternoon on a holiday weekend, where they released the FBI released her information of what was going on, or her trial, one of the two.
Right.
But they've done that a couple of times. So you almost can't say that it's coincidence.
Right. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's something that, the FBI director, himself has showed how Hillary has lied, but yet people obviously don't care about it because nobody's doing anything about it.
Right.
And I actually sat, and again, I'm the exception, just because I've been so involved and I felt like I'm invested in this for my future.
And I'll let you finish that off, because I kind of cut you off talking about that Newt Gingrich quote. Where do you see people who are interested, people who watch our program, people who listen to 1412, who are active in their church, they're doing things, they're out there going, what would you say to them of why they need to stay informed? Why do people need to do their own research in this? Why does it matter? Why does it matter to your generation?
Well, it should matter. Unfortunately, I don't think it does as much as it should. But as far as the church is concerned, we're at a critical turning point where we're either going to have our mouths and our words and our free speech of our churches suppressed, or we're going to be allowed to open up and speak as we wish. And Donald Trump has actually mentioned how they would allow preachers to speak politically, because right now a pastor is not legally supposed to sway politically one way or the other in church, and that's not what the separation between church and state is for, but that's what it's being used for. And so it's important to be educated and to make the right choice. And again, I don't know where you guys are on your show as far as if you try to stay unbiased or not, but unfortunately, you can look at the obvious and see that Hillary Clinton, what she's done in the past, and because here's the deal is Donald Trump is painting the picture that America is struggling and America needs to be fixed. Hillary Clinton, however, says America is fine and that what we are doing is working. So one of the two is not telling the truth. And by Hillary Clinton stating that everything's fine, meaning that we're going to continue to do what we're doing and continue to do more. And what we've been doing hasn't been working. And it's been, I think it's really important for the church people to do what's right and make the obvious choice for the future of our Christian faith.
Well, Kelby, you're our guest. You can say anything.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
He's the guest, so if he wants to say whatever, then
yeah, and I appreciate the ability to to speak freely, because we have that right to do so, and I guess I'm just so gun shy because of the media that I watch. They're so harsh on people whenever they step out of line, and I seen a headline. I don't know if it's true. I didn't go to look, but that potentially Greta, that's on Fox News, has been let go.
Really?
I'm curious to know why.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
14 years she's been there.
I
Yep.
grew up with Greta.
Mhm.
Oh,
14 years. So.
that's
Excuse me.
crazy.
So, yeah, that's the obvious choice, because Trump, if you go on his website, it's a very, very simple website to look at, and you can click on his views, his positions, the Second Amendment, that he believes that it's the right of the people to bear arms to protect themselves against a tyrannical government. Excuse me, I'm battling a bit of a cough. He also lays out all of his plans of his tax reform and the wall and the health insurance, and he lays it out in a very simplistic way that's not got a lot of legal political verbiage in it, and I don't see that on the other side as much.
Right.
So,
Well, and
So
I mean,
in your research, go ahead, Chuck.
oh, I was just gonna say, from someone who hasn't, recorded these things or thoroughly done my research as I should, just very.
shame on you.
I know it. I'm working on it. Okay. But just seeing it as a businessman and a dirty politician, somebody who hasn't done their research. I don't want to listen to Hillary babble on about, legalistic things. I want something that's easy. I want Trump to be like, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to make America great again. And it's just so simple. I just don't understand why people wouldn't, want to latch on to that.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, I don't think, or he hasn't presented any, super complicated agendas. There's no reason why, like Kelby said, like, why would a successful businessman, with a successful family, why would he put himself out there unless he had good intentions at heart to help America? And so just seeing it from a perspective, simple and not simple, I think it's a pretty easy answer there.
Well, it's crazy because the Clintons have been in politics before you guys were both born.
Right.
In Arkansas, them in the White House. So I heard somebody make the point yesterday that she's had a chance as state politics, as being the first lady, as being New York senator, and as being Secretary of State to put in her policies. She's had 30 years to do all this. How come she hasn't? How come nothing has worked? I mean, do you guys, your generation people, do they really trust her?
I
to
really
get the job done.
I really don't think the people who are voting for her trust her. In a lot of ways.
Why not?
I mean, you've seen the Waters World and the YouTube videos of people going out and asking simple questions, or asking, why are you voting for Hillary, or why are you voting for Trump, for that matter? And they give very simplistic answers. Well, I would like to see the first woman president, or he's an outsider. They don't really know why they're voting.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we talked about last week a little bit, is I've seen a lot of people in our generation who are just, well, Obama was black, the first black president, and now Hillary's going to be the first woman president, and it's awesome, and it's different, and it's new, and then that's about as far as they go with it. It's because they just want something. This is going to be awesome. She's the first woman president, but they aren't looking at what she's done and why she's been in politics for 30 years and hasn't been successful. It's just, the cool thing to do is to go for the first woman.
She started out as a lawyer in Arkansas. I think her and her husband both did, if I remember correctly, and have been involved ever since. So they've never, in my opinion,
involved a scandal in Arkansas.
Yeah, exactly. And so they've always been involved in a political ring in their older years. I don't know what their younger kid life was. It could have been middle class, but adult years, I don't think they've seen a middle class day past probably 30. If I was to take a random guess, I don't know that they even know what it's like to be middle class or live on a wage that's less than what it should be in some cases. So I think actually, I heard somebody say that it could have been her foundation, as opposed to her, is making $156,000 an hour is what they're bringing in.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's huge amounts. Huge amounts. Now, keep in mind, guys, as we talk about this on the 1412 radio network, that this is all about gospel movement across this globe. Which candidate that we're looking at and talking about is going to get out of the way? Which one is going to put policies in that have less government, and who are going to allow the churches to speak out about issues? That's really what we're talking about here. And I'm just very intrigued what got you both involved about this. Just to even go on, talk about this, talk about it publicly. I'm sure you've talked to friends about it. I'm sure you talked to people about it in your workplace. It's very interesting because you just don't see that.
Right.
You don't see that these days. Of course, I expect, I think I'm even an exception. Between your all's age and my age that just don't even care about this. They're too busy watching Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Or watching Game of Thrones.
Right.
Or whatever. Or playing video games. Playing video games than worrying about what's going on in the world because, this will never happen. My free speech.
Yeah. Well,
happen.
It has all these movies out about tyrannical governments and the people taking over, and all these make-believe films, and so people start to believe that, oh well, what you see in the movies isn't real and isn't going to happen. But yet it's getting closer and closer that our government the federal government is getting more and more power, and it's going to weaken our voices as American citizens. And so to your question, who's going to put to let the Christians have more of an ability to do what this country was founded on. And, you know, if you look at just the simple fact of what they stand for, the thing, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. You ask what really got us involved with all the riots that have been going on, and the Black Lives Matter group, and that movement that has had kind of a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. That really is what caught my interest, because it's like, how are people getting away with saying what they're saying, but yet preachers can't get up and say homosexuality is a sin? How can they say that we need to kill more cops and not be prosecuted for that, but yet abortions, we can't tell women what they can and can't do with a baby that they didn't create, that God formed before they even knew it. And so that's kind of what got me intrigued, because the path we're going down is going down the liberal route, is going to,
it's reverse discrimination now.
Right. Exactly. And so the liberal route's going to silence us as Christians even more, and it's going to limit our abilities to speak freely about the gospel. That's really what got me concerned about this.
All right, before we go on to the next thing, I know, Kelby, you want to talk about voter fraud. I know that we got to get Hannah in here too.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get both of your opinion on this last thing. On the Friday FBI document, public document of the testimony of Hillary testifying about the emails, 39 times in the hearing, she said that she couldn't remember, that she didn't know. She said, I don't know.
Yeah.
And she said in 2012, this is after her time as Secretary of State, the reason was that for a good year there, because of the concussion, she couldn't recall any of these things about her emails. Okay. And she didn't know that certain stuff was classified. And this is all from the testimony, because she didn't know the letter C stood for classified information.
Yeah.
As Secretary of State, after being Secretary of State for all those years, she didn't know which email was a classified one and which wasn't a classified one.
Yeah.
I just want to get your take on that, as you guys grew up with computers. You've grown up in a mobile wireless world. The Secretary of State is one of the highest positions in the nation.
Right.
What do you guys think of that? That our Secretary of State didn't know what a classified document was. And she said 39 times she didn't know.
It's alarming to think that, you know.
Is that okay?
No, it is not okay. And it's just, what more would she do if she was in this seat in the White House? You know, what other things is she going to do that she doesn't remember? Or what other things is she just going to say, oh, well, I didn't know that I can't do that, even though I've been in this thing, you know, half my life.
Yeah.
You know, how much more destruction could she cause if she gets elected?
She was the first lady and a New York senator and then Secretary of State. 30 years of politics. And she was okay with getting a personal email server, and then they used a software on it called Bleach that deleted everything. And she had, in the testimony it was reported, she had 13 different BlackBerry devices, and she's not sure where they went.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and
this is very public. This is not.
It's extremely. Yeah, it's extremely public, because Fox News, which I know typically leans to the right, had somebody on the other day, or yesterday actually, talking about the 13 phones, and how somebody started going off on, and actually I need to correct myself, it was actually CNN, and it was one of the female anchors, and I can't remember her name, but somebody started going off on her 13 devices and how they destroyed them with hammers, and she interrupts him and stops and says, now wait a second, well, you can't just be spouting off stuff like that. We've got to fact check that. Well, the other gentleman that they had on from the government, I believe the FBI, corroborated that and said, yes, no, he's right. After they were done using them, they did destroy them with a hammer. And this was back then. This wasn't like, oh, the FBI is looking at me, let's go destroy the. It was as she finished up with those devices, they would destroy them with the hammers. And so that's not a conspiracy. That is evidence that's been spoken. So, and no, it's not. Okay.
Are you? Yeah, I just can't. I mean, do people think, oh, well, they're just, you know, Rush Limbaugh's making that up, or
Yeah.
you know, somebody out there, you know, now as they have coined, as amazingly enough, maybe none of our listeners even know much about this, but how Hillary is trying to consider the right-wing media, alt-right media, to be the blame for all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't made up. This is all on mainstream. This is FBI testimony that was released on Friday. Everybody to view. Public information. And are we okay? Or do we trust that? Would any of your group?
I really wish I could find somebody that's so disconnected of what's going on. They have no idea who's running for president, and ask them.
Me too.
Hey, if I was able to send you an email that had C in parentheses, and I type in a bunch of whatever it may be, what's your best guess of what that C in parentheses stands for? And also reading the subject material, could you come to a reasonable conclusion of what that means?
Okay, after you've had security clearance for 30 years of your life with the nation's secrets.
Exactly.
As the president's wife, as a high-ranking New York senator, as the head of state, Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Pretty sure she knew what classified meant, what it didn't mean.
Absolutely. That's just that's the political way of trying to stay clean and get out of this without getting in trouble. So,
yeah.
Which I think she done a good job by having her husband meet with the Attorney General, but
that's good. Shai, do you want to take a quick break?
Yeah, let's go on a break, and we'll get Hannah in here and see what she has to say. I'm very excited about that and looking forward to that.
This is the 1412 Live, helping you do the works and greater works.
Thank you for listening to the 1412 Radio Network. We also want to invite you to watch Don Allen's Christ the Healer television program. Don's message will open your eyes to living life as God intended. Watch Christ the Healer 9 p.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday evening. You'll find Christ the Healer on GEB America through DirecTV Channel 363 or watch it online at gebamerica.com. Christ the Healer is also found on Roku systems and KGEB TV 53 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We can also be seen Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time and Wednesday evenings at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on Lake TV. You can find Lake TV through Charter Cable Channel 197 in Como.
Cause it's all from him. The only thing I've ever contributed is my sin. So I'm at it again with the pattern of fin. But this time it's different. I got the spirit within. Man, I'm in the zone, but I ain't in it alone. The spirit's giving lyrics I can never write on my own. Making his glory known till the day that I'm gone. Cause I don't rap for me, I rap for him who sits on the throne. I was once a young misfit, guilty and convicted. I was blinded on the trail, and then the scales begun lifted. No pun intended, my old life I'm done with it. Old tree, he's dead and gone like he was on some hit list. I come spitting over beats with drums kicking. How I'm rapping over tracks, got these cats tongue twisted. Look, I'm committed to see the glory that he once stripped. The spirit's giving lyrics, I'm just here to run with it. I ain't come conflicted. I keep my message consistent. I'm no longer standing on sand. My foundation's unshifted. I come gifted. Lyrics flowing like they from liquid. God be flaming up my mic, sorta like the sun kissed it. I'm done with business. For his glory, I still run the distance. Spirit got me flipping over beats like I'm a gymnast. So I'm gon' risk it. No longer heaven's unlisted. What I'm writing now before I couldn't comprehend it. Look, this cat's had it. I couldn't leave my rap stagnant. Had to have another like I wasn't Breaking Bad at it. Got past baggage. The Lord's conquering my bad habits. Now he's got me hopping on these beats like I'm a jack.
Alrighty, welcome back. Thank you all for listening. If you're just tuning in today, I'm your host Cheyenne. I am here with Hannah talking about the election. We've got Matt on Skype. It's been a good show so far, and I'm excited about the rest of it. And we've been talking about us millennials and our perspective on things and the different views that we have, coming from myself, someone who hasn't done a lot of research up until recently, and then Kelby, who's been really engaged in all of this since Trump came out last year. And we've got his wife Hannah here, and I just wanted to know what kind of what sparked your interest, or how did you start getting involved, with the election this year, or were you involved with Obama's election? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was not interested in Obama's election. I watched the presidential debates just because I think I actually had to do a homework assignment on it. So I'm quite a bit younger than Kelby. My husband's 27 and I'm 21. So we have a little bit of an age gap. And so I remember, being still in school, and it was a big deal to do homework about it. And that's why I had gotten involved, but that it was not something I was super interested in. To be really honest, what got me intrigued about this election was really my husband. He was just right out of the gate such a Donald Trump supporter, and I was honestly embarrassed that he was. Not because I'm for Hillary, but because everyone was so against Donald Trump. And I was like, why does he like him? And it was almost embarrassing to talk about because he was so vocal about it. But I remember, listening in when the Democratic still wasn't down to Hillary. There was, her and Bernie and another guy. And I remember them talking about, it was like maternity leave would be paid for no matter what. And I was like, Kelby, that sounds like awesome. Why wouldn't people go for that? And I can see as a millennial why we're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Let's do that. But we don't, see why our country was founded on big state, small federal government. And it's because, where's that money really coming from? And, that's really actually ruining, small businesses and things like that. And so I got into a little bit more deeper into all the stuff that, I guess liberals kind of say hand out. And it's just interesting to see that and how our country was founded and how opposite it is, and for a reason.
Right. So as far as having Maverick and looking up the future, the next 4 and potentially 8 years, as a mother, a young mother, what does that look like for you? Is that another reason, are those things correlated in your passion about the election this year and just getting information out to other people?
Absolutely. For me, it's like I'm a person who it's hard work to get what you want. And you have to be willing to do it. Yeah. And so you're a big advocate for that. Yeah. Yeah. So I own my own business. And so I'm very, very, I think it's so important that you've got to put in the work to get what you want. And I think that's, it's the same way in our Christian walk. God does not, he's awesome. And, we have everything handed to us. Yes. But to get those blessings here on earth, it's not always, oh, here you go. No, there's trials and things like that we have to go through. And that's so important for me to instill into my son. And I think, nothing against people who are Democrats, but I think they're used to getting handouts, and that's not the way that it was intended. I mean, there's supposed to be a mountain to climb. You know, there's supposed to be a mountain to climb to get what we need. So that's what I want my son to know, and that's why it's so important to me. I look at Donald Trump, who's a successful businessman, and I can relate with that. You know, I think that he did not just have it handed to him. I mean, in a sense he did, because, you know, his dad gave him a loan, and it was not a small loan. Yeah. But
a small loan of $1 million.
He did, you know, work to be the man he is.
That's
and
right.
so I really respect that.
That's awesome.
Well, Hannah, this is a great point you're bringing up, because everybody looks at the dollar amount, but this small loan was $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
From his dad, but he multiplied it to billions. And I'm not sure we all really grab a hold of what $1 billion is.
Right.
Because this would be the same as right now, if he had a 1 and took it to 1,000, so just multiply that out. He multiplied that into billions.
Right.
So it's not easy. If somebody gave you $100,000 loan right now, Hannah, for your business, what would that look like? That'd be huge, right?
Oh yeah, that'd be insane.
But if you compare it, $100,000 loan, and you took that times 1,000, that would mean you took that $100,000 loan that's huge to you right now, and you multiplied it, and you grew it, and you prospered in your business. So you're looking at, this is really interesting, with you having a small business and doing this, because Kelby talked about it. You guys watch the debates, you watch the primaries, and you watch all this stuff.
Yeah.
The one convention had a bunch of people in it that promised free college.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that? So you're saying you're into hard work and growing your business, and you kind of just want the government to get out of your way.
Yeah.
And you be able to do that for your family. But the one party is promising free college for everybody.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, and I think as a millennial, your first reaction is, oh, awesome.
Heck yeah,
debt free, you know. But when you really think about that, what is a college degree if everyone has one?
Right. We literally, I think those
That's
were
right.
verbatim what we talked about
Yeah.
last week, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's it really means nothing.
Right.
And that's what separates people. I mean, that's, you know, separates hard work from people who aren't. A part of it's a college degree. Not everybody's life would look like that, you know, necessarily. I don't actually have a college degree. I went to schooling, but so my life wouldn't look like that. But what I've attained just through hard work, you know.
Right.
And you know, another thing that I kind of really sticks out to me in this election is do part-time work down at Spa Chic at Lake of the Ozarks, and I was doing a girl's nails, and she's a millennial. She's in college right now, and she's actually going to be a doctor. And I had brought up a question just kind of about vaccines, which I'm not going to get into that, but we ended up getting into the election, and she said, I can't vote for Donald Trump because show love. All the Republicans, they just have so much hate for everyone. And I mean, it kind of goes back into what you guys were just talking about a little while ago, but it's like, what? You know, because we don't love Muslims. We never said that we don't love Muslims. It's that, you know how it is.
Right.
Hillary, it's okay to, you know, support gays, but it's okay not to not support gays, you know? So it's just kind of the same things that you were talking about. And that she doesn't see the big picture. It's not that we don't love people. It's just that I think we get the big idea of it. And sometimes I think as a liberal informative, you only get what sounds good.
I find that very interesting because the media is not covering how much Trump's employees love him. And all these events, just like this he went to the Black church in Detroit this past weekend.
Right.
They love him.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's a racist somehow, right? You know.
Yeah, if you if you were to watch the videos and the things behind the scenes that people recorded and not the mainstream media, they loved him back there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I
It
think
was real favorable.
absolutely. And you know, again, going back to millennial, it's cool to do what everyone else is doing. And as a millennial,
No, wait, we had, wait a minute, we had that in the 80s, guys. I mean, when I'm growing up as a
Yeah.
kid,
I'm
that
wearing.
was
I'm
the
wearing.
I think
same
it's
exact
just this
thing.
age
So
group. I think
back.
it's just this age group. You know what I mean? Necessarily being like in your 16s to 30s, maybe somewhere in there. You know what I mean? In your younger years, before you're married, before you have a family, before you're established, kind of thing. It's cool to be relaxed and love everybody, and you know, travel and do all this stuff. I mean, to be honest, everybody
Right.
wants to do that. But that's what's cool. So when you see all these photos of people going over and, you know, loving all these people and traveling and doing all this stuff, it's cool. And that's how I kind of view liberals, not necessarily travel, but they love everyone, accept everyone. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not that you don't accept everyone. You just have to know that there's a boundary where you have to disagree, that what they're doing is not right.
Right. Well, that's like kind of the
So
back
did your,
that we were talking about, how it's okay. We have to support all of these, you know, different
Yeah.
groups and different, you know, kinds of people. But as Christians, whenever it comes to us taking a stand in what we believe in, then all of a sudden, you know, we're being discriminatory against others, you know, but people that come against Christians, that's just their beliefs. You know, they don't have to accept us, but I mean, of course, as Christians, we do love and accept everyone. But, you know, when it comes to people making exceptions for us, it's just not always that way.
Yeah. And then, you know, and I think that's huge. As I hear my friends who are still in college, don't have families, well, why don't you just love people? You know, that is such a big deal with the liberals. We love everyone and we accept everyone, you know, and I think that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
and the weird thing is that that's Jesus' message.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you think, well, if you want to model after somebody in love, he is love. He's the person of love. And why would they not go for that? Because it's really not about accepting everyone. Just when it's convenient.
Yeah. No,
it's convenient for us.
I totally agree.
Go ahead, Ann.
I totally agree. And
So,
I think that people don't see that, though. I think they, I personally think Hillary loves everyone, you know, quotations around that, because of money, not because she really does. Do I think she's going to take the shirt off her back to help someone on the side of the road? No, not unless there's a camera there, you know?
Right.
So is that common amongst the people that you talk to, Hannah?
Yeah.
In your age group?
Yeah.
They feel the same way about Hillary?
I think that's what I gather a lot is, well, we don't like Donald because he has so much hate for people. But again, they're only looking at mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, so what turned the tide for you, Hannah? Was it you guys having your son? Was it you thinking about what's the world going to look like for him?
Always been more conservative. I grew up in rural Missouri, so I'm in a Bible Belt, and I can't really say I've ever been a Democratic, but you know, what it is for me, for Donald Trump, why I would choose him. I mean, I think it is a lot with my son. When my son grows up, I don't want him someone like Hillary. I would want his role model to be someone like Donald Trump. And also, I think a lot of it is, what would the world look like in, you know, 15 years when he's an adult? Well, for that matter, 17 really, when he's an adult. But I don't think it would be somewhere he could live. I really don't. I think it would be so controlled that, you know, his thoughts and actions are already decided for him. And that's not the way it was intended to be.
Isn't that interesting? And that's a big hot topic for you, right, Shaq?
Right.
I mean, that is, you really don't want to be told what to do or how to believe or what to. Now, your friends are hugely important, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All the people around you, the people, same with you, Hannah?
Yeah.
How about
absolutely.
your group and the people around you? You guys talk about this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
But you're also in a, like you said, you're in a more conservative upbringing in a rural area and all that. But yet, okay, we're talking to Kelby. Where do you mainly get your news?
Well, I don't know if he told you who he listened to a lot, but I mean, I think we do listen to a lot of independent radio shows, but one of that we love to listen to is Alex Jones. Yes, he can be a little far out there, but what his real message is we enjoy. But we like him, and I do like to do a lot of research online. So I can't really tell you I get it from a certain website source, but I do a lot of research online, and then I actually like to read a lot, and I do a lot of not necessarily like I read Twilight, more like I like to read informative stuff. I like to read biographies, so I like to learn about people. I like to read personal growth, so I like to grow myself, different things like that. So I think there's always bits and pieces in there that are something that you can learn, and I think Obama wrote a book a few years back. I didn't read the whole thing. I read bits and pieces of it. But there's in there where he said something to his father. He had wrote to his father about destructing America. And it's just like, I mean, it's in plain day, but people don't believe it or choose not to find it themselves.
Wow. Now, we talked with Kelby about the testimony that was released, the documentation that the FBI released on Friday about all of Hillary's emails. And we just got to get your take on this real quick. She didn't know, after being in politics 30 years, what was a classified email. Yeah. So what do you think of that?
All I can do is laugh. I mean, that is insane. And, my biggest thing from the Hillary takeaway thing is, the Attorney General. I mean, if anyone will YouTube that, it is crazy when they are questioning the Attorney General. There's a guy, I believe he's from Indiana, the senator from Indiana. No, that's Mike Pence. Who is it? It is a conservative state. I can't remember who he represents, but someone in a higher position who's asking her a couple questions. And
was it Trey Gowdy?
Where's he from?
Was it Trey Gowdy?
Yeah. What state is he from? I don't know. I'd remember from the state, not from his name.
You go ahead. I'll look it up.
Okay. But he was asking her. What did he say specifically? He's like, is it or is it wrong to speed? So if the speed limit's 35 and you're going 40, is that or is it wrong? Well, the stature of the limitations, that's all she could say. It depends on the stature of the limitations, which basically means whatever the cop decides, So he's saying, is it or is it wrong to send emails? Well, it's the stature of the limitations. And he's like, no. Is it or is it wrong to speed in a 35 if you're going 40? Yes, it is. And he finally got her to say yes to that. But she would never say it was wrong to send emails. She would just say, well, it depends on the stature of the limitations. And that is my big... Where?
South Carolina House of Representatives.
Yes. And
so
that was my big takeaway. I mean, Hillary knows better. I mean, it's just, everyone knows better. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of common sense what's classified and wouldn't be classified by what's in the email, Right. It's not something that was, if it says this, I'm sure there's no rules and regulations like that. It's probably pretty common sense.
Right. Don't you love it? I just love how bold she is. It's great.
That's great. Well, what else, Hannah? Because there's important things I know for you as a mother, you as a business owner, and what do you want to see? What do you want to see going forward over these next 4 years? I mean, I happen to believe, and Donnie and I talk about this all the time, that we are not in a doom and gloom situation. I think we are growing, and the gospel is going to increase and move across this globe, and we're going to be a huge part of it. And we're going to have an incredible time here over these next few years to share the good news. And I think it's going to be a great time. I think we live in the most wonderful technological age in history to spread the gospel.
I agree. I mean, it was just last week. I'm Skyping with someone at New Jersey at 5 a.m, because at that time it's 7 their time, I believe. And, I'm working my business. So think about that with sharing the gospel. And I agree, even though sometimes the world looks like it's crashing around us. I mean, it's our time to raise up and be radical. And it's so exciting. I mean, to be a radical Christian right now, it's just going to impact. I mean, this is our time to impact, and it's going to be awesome. I mean, you're either going to be on the train or you're not, and it's cool.
Right.
Do you think other 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds right now, if you guys are going to, at some point, that they're going to have enough and want to get more involved like you did?
I would hope so, and with it being, we're so overwhelmed with technology that regardless of whether or not you're being fed truth by media, it's so ridiculous. And there has to be a point to where you're like, okay, I have to know what's actually going on here, and it, I think that as we get closer to the election, that people are going to, really get fed up with everything that's been going on, with the Clinton scandals. And I know that myself, I'm a procrastinator, and I'm sure a lot of other 20-something-year-olds are. So hopefully, as time is pressed more, people will open their eyes and, really try to decide, okay, what am I going to do here? Am I going to go right? Am I going to go left? Am I not going to do anything at all? At least decision making.
And I think too, I think before in previous elections, there wasn't so much talk about, is this true or not true? I think we just believed everything that was said. And I think for once, people are, they're starting to, well, do you really believe that? Or really start to question. And I think this is the turning point. I think we're going to see that more. So yeah, I do think more people will get involved, because I think finally we've kind of reached that breaking point where people are really actually starting to see what's been going on the last 20 years, but it was always hidden.
Right. Well, and you were even saying with liberal media now is exposing things about Hillary that they weren't, even just months ago. So it's kind of hard to hide from these things. And what you were saying, that our generation, the millennials, our numbers are huge. So even if a number of us don't get out there and vote, we are still making a difference.
Yeah. And I think really where, people need to be informed and targeted is really at college campuses. I think that's a huge deal. I think a lot of professors are either one way or the other. And, Jesus loves them too, but I think they get paid to speak their opinion. And I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it sitting in college classes, and there is no hiding the fact that, people that are professors really, I think can give you a grade depending on what your opinion is and if you speak it or not. And so I think a lot of, millennials at college campuses were such Bernie supporters. I think that was such a huge place for him. I know, we're a little bit closer to Springfield. So like MSU there, which is a huge school, it's just Bernie all over. Springfield is such a big Bernie town. And
so isn't that interesting that the DNC conspired against Bernie?
Yeah.
It came out.
Yeah.
They
absolutely.
were working against Bernie.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk to Bernie supporters, people did they just roll over, and are they okay with that? Did it go away, or what are they saying?
No, I think the few people that I know that are, maybe more for Bernie are definitely upset big time. I don't think it's like,
are they questioning now? Are they questioning Hillary?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think that, you know, what they want or what they feel like they want or what they feel like is best is also found in Hillary, kind of versus Donald Trump. I don't think they think maybe she's right, but again, kind of going back to handouts and things that you want, I think is found with the Democratic versus, you know, a Republican Party.
Free college.
Yeah.
Free health care.
Yeah.
Free this.
And
free
I mean,
that.
my brother is an amazing man, but he is a huge Bernie supporter. And I can tell you, just as I see him, you know, he is more, I would want this. I want this for free. You know, he's a handout person. He would love handouts. You know, he works, but he thinks it's awesome. And it's like, okay, Cody, you know, that's fine, but don't be scared when the government takes over, you know, because that's what's going to happen if you keep getting stuff like that.
And for you, Hannah, running your business, you're going to pay business taxes and pay for him.
Yeah.
To do these things.
Yeah. And that's one thing I have to say that I love about Trump's tax plan, is that if you make under a certain amount, you don't get taxed. I think I love that. Best idea yet. So. And
is that going to, you know, you've looked at both platforms, you've heard from all these people, which party, which candidate is going to allow you to grow your business and have better business and to move the economy forward?
I definitely think, you know, I think Trump for sure. I look at, you know, to be honest, I always joke. I mean, this would never actually be in me enough to do this, but I always joke if, you know, Hillary makes it, well, I guess I'm going to quit everything I do and live off the government because I'd make more money than I do now. And, you know, it's because everything they do is against, you know, small business owners, to be really honest. And I grew up in an agriculture world. I've actually traveled the whole entire world educating people on agriculture. And I've been over, you know, in Ireland and England and watched these small farms completely be diminished by the government taking over. So there is nothing besides what is commercial or streamlined. No small business can exist in something like that. And so I think, I mean, I know I'll thrive with Trump versus Hillary. And my next thought too is if the government's giving you money, well, you can only spend the government's money at certain spots. They're not going to spend it at my business because I'm not, you know what I mean? You can't spend it at my business.
Right.
Wow.
Again, you're losing your freedom.
Yeah.
Are we out of time, Shy?
It looks like it. We're up at 11:35.
Uh-oh.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for today. Maybe we can have you guys in because it seems like I know Kelby had a lot more to say, and I'm sure you do too.
Oh, we have a ton more.
Yeah, so maybe we could do what would that be? The vote part 7.
Yeah, we're going all the way to the election. So.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in today. It was so awesome hearing from you. To you guys listening, we do still want to hear from you today. If you have any questions, comments, you know, just give us your feedback. Email at don@TwoGuysAndABible.com. Get on the Two Guys and a Bible Facebook page. And I would encourage you guys to share this with other millennials. I know that an hour and a half is a tough time to stick through. And Kelby said, you know, if he's not latched on in the first 6 seconds that he kind of clicks out of that. But really share this with your kids and with your grandkids and, you know, just encourage people to do their research on this because this is so huge. Join us here next week at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for the 1412 Live. We'll have the Rev back in here with us. Until then, stay tuned. In about 15 minutes, the Interpulpit Radio Blast is up with missionary Pastor Rick Bell. At the noon hour, we've got Pastors Mark and Kim Spellman with Faith and Family. And at 1 o'clock, it's the Mad Christian Radio Show with new music, artist interviews, impact devotional, and music news. So stick around and be blessed.
You've been listening to the 1412 Live. Join us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time on the only station helping you to do the works and greater works.